A Monday morning look at the world, waking up to a new week of pictures and thought. This is Reflections. Farewell, Martin Parr. It may seem a strange way to begin a tribute to a photographic legend, but it was the first story I thought of when thinking of the name Martin Parr. I've been returning to this story all evening as I write, this being a Sunday evening. The late, great photojournalist Tom Stoddart in his home in the northeast of England is the picture I'm seeing. I'd travelled to Tom's house to make a film about his life and work. His walls seemed filled with black and white history, Macallan, colleagues, friends, powerful pictures of equally powerful moments. And then, right in the middle of all that grit and monochrome, a large, unapologetic, framed colour print by Martin Parr. I had to know why that had ended up amongst all the black and white, contrasty, potent material. Years earlier, on an assignment, he'd brought home a very odd object, shall we say, found in a certain dictator's bathroom. Please allow me to cast over what it actually was and whose bathroom it came from, but something you'd never want to explain in airport customs. Martin was a collector, Tom told me. Not just of the photo books, which he's so famous for, but of war memorabilia, strange historical fragments. And so Tom, knowing Martin, rang him and said, "I think I've got something you'll want." Apparently Martin didn't hesitate. He obviously trusted Tom and told him he could choose anything he liked from his archive as a way of thanks. And that's why a big Parr colour print sat proudly in a house otherwise devoted to black and white. I rather liked this idea of two photographers finding the humour and the curiosity in each other's world, photographically and physically. News broke over the weekend that Martin Parr had passed, and the loss will definitely land heavily with the photographic community here in the UK and in countries far and wide across this globe, I have no doubt. British photography feels as though a light has gone out, I'd say, even if the work stays exactly where it is. Martin Parr, CBE, born 23rd of May 1952. A documentary photographer, a photojournalist, collector of photo books, as I say, and, as I also learned through Tom, a collector of wartime odds and ends that most of us wouldn't know what to do with. He spent his career pointing a camera at modern life with a wonderful deadpan fascination. Some called it satire, others anthropology, but whatever label you pinned on it, his pictures made you look twice at how we behave when we think nobody is watching. I can't say I appreciated everything he did, but that's both the subjectivity and glorious nature of art and photography. Martin Parr photographed England's social classes, the wealth of the Western world, the holiday beaches, the cafes, the queues, the acts of vanity. He held them all up like postcards from a country I thought I understood far better. I'd hoped to interview him last year. We even had a yes penciled in. One of those nearly there moments that kept slipping back in the diary. I wanted to ask about those early black and white pictures that are often overshadowed by the big, bright, colourful work. Even then, before the colour turned up the volume, you could see the same instinct at play. He was watching people, not judging them, just witnessing the theatre of everyday life. His long association with Magnum brought his work into the international fold, though he always felt, to me, very much rooted in this patch of the world. He showed the UK to itself without coats of varnish. He didn't wait for the flattering version, the Instagram influencer's picture of life. He undoubtedly photographed the side of it we so often, crop out. The exhibitions, the books, the archives that students will pore over for decades. That's the bit that matters most. And it's the reason any of us lift a camera. He paid attention. He looked at small things, ordinary things, things most people walk straight past. And isn't that a mantra I repeat often? Most of us won't leave behind a collection that rewires how a generation sees its own culture. We probably won't publish shelves of photo books or have our work debated in universities. But we can look. We can make pictures because something in front of us stirs something inside, even if we can't explain it in the moment. The beauty of photography. Martin Parr spent his life photographing the everyday and showing that it isn't ordinary at all. And that's a legacy worth holding on to. He used to say he was always chasing the gap between how a place likes to present itself and what it actually is. That line alone tells you everything about Martin's eye. He'd make photographs that looked like fun at first glance, almost playful. Then, if you looked much closer, you'd see there was more sitting alongside as narrative. The close-up way of working, the vibrancy, the flash that didn't suck the authenticity out of a moment. You could look at one of his pictures and not know whether to grin or wince, really, which I suppose was exactly the point. And then there was the Martin Parr Foundation in Bristol, which feels even more significant today, of course. He built it as a home for British and Irish documentary work, not just his own, but the photographs and stories he thought deserved to be kept safe, studied, argued over, and of course enjoyed. It was never a monument to himself. It was a place that said, look, this matters, this work we do, this thing we love, this really odd business of pointing cameras at real life. He backed emerging photographers, preserved archives that might otherwise have scattered to the wind, and turned the foundation into a kind of anchor for anyone trying to understand how we've documented this corner of the world. It's hard to imagine now our photographic landscape without it. Over the past couple of years of this show, I've spoken to a number of photographers who credited Martin's interest in their work as pivotal, not just for their work, but for their aspiration. I've always winced slightly at the word obituary. It seems such a sullen word for lives lived, but I did look up that of Martin's and found immediately The Guardian's comforting words about this behemoth of British photographic legend. I was amused to read that his editor, Wendy Jones, had suggested he always looked like a naff bird watcher. Apologies to those who photograph birds, I'm sure it was said in complete jest. According to the piece, Martin Parr had an unremarkable early life. He made family trips to the local sewage works, and they apparently enjoyed the local history there, the views, and the occasional ice cream. Oh, but how he turned that ordinary then into the extraordinary for the millions who followed and loved his work. The writing, you could say, was on the wall from an early age. Well, probably literally at that. I'll leave a link in the show notes, but Charlotte Janssen's piece in The Guardian, posted just after 6 on the evening following his death, catches a real truism, I think, about Martin Parr. It's hard to contain a life like his in a single line, but I think this comes pretty close. A brilliantly human photographer, he celebrated the overlooked, finding beauty in cheese sandwiches at a church fete, or people queuing for ice cream at the beach, all while poking fun at Britishness. Charlotte, I think that is perfect. I don't know why I thought of this. Call it an inquisitive mind that wanders off in all directions, like a photographer with bucket and spadefuls of curiosity on New Brighton Beach, maybe. But I wonder what a song at his funeral might sound like when it comes to paying tribute, and there seems to be only one, a Monty Python classic, where you're invited to always look on the bright side of life.